Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, Kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
From Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Happy Gaur Purnima. Today is the Maha Mahotsava, the great festival of the appearance day of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the, I'd say, the inspiration of our yoga lineage that we follow, who came to really inaugurate coming together and doing what we do, which is chanting and singing. If you love Kirtan, we all owe a little something special to Lord Chaitanya. So today we're going to have a special show about appreciating Lord Chaitanya, how Lord Chaitanya has touched our life, come into our life, and continues to manifest through our choices in this life. Kaustubha, how are you, my friend?
I'm happy to be here with you today, Raghunath.
I know, it's an auspicious day. We had an auspicious party over here. It wasn't a planned party. It was just a little get together of just hearing. We just read Chaitanya's pastimes and just had these really nice kirtan going. It was really sweet. And then a big Mara was a little sick today. She's a little sicky. I don't know if you can tell by her little sicky face. She's a little sicky. She looks good. You look good, even though you're sick. I didn't mean that you have a sick face. Was that an offense to say
that can even be a compliment nowadays? Like, oh, your face is sick.
Yo, you sick? Yes, you so look at. She's so sick. Now she's a little sick, but she showed up anyway.
That's when I was in England recently. That was the thing. Sick.
Sick. It's sick, man. It's sick, mate.
Yeah, oh man, it's sick. That class was sick, mate.
Class was sick. I'm sick as a dog, mate. Okay, well, anyway, so Mara, do you have any announcements before we dive into this sweet honey pot? Here you go.
We have Bhakti Recovery Groups meeting at 1 and 2 p.m. today. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Mara. You can just chill if you want. It's going to have no takeaways. You're takeaway free.
Is she going to knit today?
No, she's out of it. She's out of it today.
You know, I was hanging out with Jai Giridhari yesterday, or the day before yesterday. He said to me, he said,
sick.
No, he didn't say sick. He said, why hasn't anyone started calling Mara Nityananda? Nityananda.
Ooh. Nityananda. Never thought about that. Nityananda Priya. All right. Well, all right, Kaustubha.
Yeah.
Where do we start with this?
Well, you know where I thought maybe we start? I mean, here's the thing, right? When people that are listening to, I'm thinking of people that listen to Wisdom of the Sages that aren't so familiar with Sri Chaitanya, who he is, what he's all about. Let's try to break that down in the most fundamental, clear way that we can. Right?
Keep it simple, keep it real. Because it's not like
real.
Because it's not like Kirtan never existed. Matter of fact, if you go to any ashram in India, everyone's doing a little Kirtan. You're sitting back, you're chanting, it's sort of meditative and peaceful. But something about Lord Chaitanya, when he really introduced Kirtan in a very public way, in a very fearless way, because you got to understand the climate of what was going on in India at the time. India was occupied, and it was occupied by fundamentalists who like basically forbid it. It had to go super underground, and Nityananda took it, or Lord Chaitanya took it to the streets. And for you and I who are coming from the hardcore scene, it's something we could relate to, because the kirtan was not meditative. In one sense, it's the most meditative, but in another sense, it was loud. And when you went to a temple, we would go to the Brooklyn Temple and see the kirtan so like lively. You've never seen any. For us, it's safe to say you've never seen anything like it except a hardcore show. Hardcore shows where people are slam dancing, jumping off the stage. It is so intense that it just physically moves you. And you're just like, what is going on? What is the passion behind this? What is the motivating force?
Okay, yeah. So in other words, and I'm with you there. Like, in other words, we were coming from the hardcore scene, hardcore punk rock scene, and there was a common kind of element there that, like, going to like the hardcore shows that we're involved with, kind of like the band and the audience. The division between them was really minimized, because like the audience was on stage as much as the band was off the stage as much as the audience.
Yeah, the band was jumping in the stage. The audience is jumping on the stage.
And so it wasn't, a musical event where it's like, okay, there's a performer up there and there's an audience down here. It was,
we're Jay Giles' band. You're like holding up your lighter. Yeah.
And there was like a common emotion going into, like a shared, like it was more like one group of people putting their shared emotion into this music together, and with a lot of enthusiasm. And so when I got brought to the Brooklyn Temple for the first time, I was like, first of all, I was with all my friends that were coming from the hardcore scene. But then, like, it was actually easy to kind of step into that musical thing and say, oh man, we can sing this, we can dance, we can get like fully involved in this. And really, there definitely was an appeal, and there definitely was like a catharsis through it that felt, even though I didn't understand really so much what was going on.
You sort of lose yourself in it. You lose yourself in it. And that's the magic of the recipe of self-realization in Kali Yuga, is song and dance. And it's sort of like, well, I want something more mystical. Can I slit my tongue and touch my pineal gland? And, there's all this weird yogic tapas you do to develop mystic powers. This is the singing and dancing and cooking and offering food with love and receiving that food. This is like the magic recipe of self-transformation in Kali Yuga. And this was the magic recipe that Lord Chaitanya introduced to the dented cans of Kali Yuga. It doesn't get more dented than the hardcore scene, or pretty much all of us here on Zoom. It's not like we were like, well, I've been a cultured Brahmin studying Jnana Yoga for many, many decades now. No, we are a bunch of mental cases, a bunch of like cracked eggs, flat tires, dented cans, and somehow it's sort of like soaked up into us. We sponged it up, and we're like, wow. And we noticed the transformation. We noticed, oh, all right, first we're going to cut this out of our life, then we're going to add this to our life, then and it's also happening historically at the time, while everyone in the world is running towards like material progress. How can we build here and build the greater armies and, find newer oceans and sail bigger ships and take over new lands? There was an entire other renaissance parallel going on in India with Lord Chaitanya. Now, Lord Chaitanya is not just some, a cultural figure of the day. He's actually teaching eternal truths. And instead of like exploring outward, is in a whole inner exploration. And that's the difference of what was going on in India at that time. How can I explore my inner workings? And truthfully, no matter where we're at in this show, coming to this podcast or coming to these teachings, we're realizing that actually the real work I've got to do in this world is all this inner work. We take it very, very personally. It's all about our personal work and our inner engineering that's going on with our consciousness.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. But I'm thinking, let's dial it back a bit here, because let's really talk about our conception of who Sri Chaitanya is, how he's understood in our lineage, in our bhakti lineage, okay? Because this is important, you know, in people that are new to Eastern thought, people that are new to, let's say, Hinduism, or just the whole broad range of yogic teachings growing out of the ancient literatures and ancient practices of India, it can be very confusing. Here's a spiritual tradition that's saying that, yes, there is a supreme being, right? There is like a divine supreme being who's kind of the root of all existence. And in one sense, we are all made of the energy of that being, but also there are different categories of beings, and that one being also takes on other forms, right? Comes in different ways, called avatars, right? They come and for different purposes, right? Now in India, you got, you know, in India you have like so many. It's not, you know, it's not only in India, but people are prone. They want to worship, you know, they want to feel connected to some divine being. And within India and all around the world, you have so many, like, say, we could call them like false incarnations, right? Like people that are claiming to be like, I am one of these Vishnu incarnations. It's not at all uncommon. Here we're saying that Krishna himself, he manifested in another form called Sri Chaitanya for a specific purpose. And let's get into that purpose. But before we do, I just wanted to say one thing on this, Raghunath. It's like speaking to the caution of, let's not be so naive, right? That we just buy into anyone coming along and saying, you know, I am God, or even subtly playing with us, you know, because like, and normally I don't call people out by name here, but I just saw something recently, and I just, and
you're going to name names? You're going to name names today?
And I have to name names because the name plays into the subtlety of how this person was playing with people. But I just saw a video of Sadhguru, who's kind of skyrocketed to become, I don't know, like
he's like a superstar.
Biggest, yeah. And so he was speaking to a huge crowd, like it was like an outdoor event, and it was thousands and thousands of people. And he said, how many of you love Sadhguru? Like he was speaking in the third person about himself, right? And like the entire crowd is raising their hand. And so then
held up their lighter to Sadhguru.
And so he said, if you love Sadhguru, then I ask one thing of you all. And now this is a little subtle what he did. It's not that subtle, but it's subtle enough that like confuses
Let me
people.
hear.
He said, if you love Sadhguru, then I ask of you one thing, that you see Sadhguru in every living being. Now,
like he is the Paramatma, like he is the super soul never living.
Well, you see, that's what he's
or
playing
should we
with.
just
in other words,
it's a cross between, of course, yeah, we should love, you love me, and you should love everyone. Love everyone the same way, with the same love.
Or even the idea that like a person that's like evolved spiritually can see every living being as a guru in a way, right? I can learn from everyone. I could, you know, so he's, so first he talks about himself in the third person, and then he didn't say see God in every living being or see the spirit in every living being and honor that. He didn't say that. He said see Sadhguru in every living being. And he was already talking about himself in the third person. So it's like he's saying, I am in everyone. And you, like I'm the Paramatma in the heart of every living being. Because the Shastras, these ancient texts, which have a time-tested kind of clout way beyond any normal human being walking around now, right? These texts and the teachings have been handed down for so many centuries. They provide such, you know, and for someone to kind of, and they're telling us that we can see God in every living being. So then for a person to say, well, if you love me, then see Sadhguru in every living being, you're playing with that, you know, even not so subtly playing with that idea. And then he said this, he said, and if you do this one thing, then I will take care of your destiny and your liberation. Oh, so you're Mukunda now, right? You know, like,
here's the problem with these guys.
Yeah.
You know, it is a big problem in general. You know, there are these ancient teachings, the Vedas, and they speak about God as impersonal or God as Brahman, like everything is God. And then they also shed light, and some lineages will speak like that. Then they'll speak about God as a person, and we're separate. And then they'll speak about yogic practices, etc. And unless you're studying this stuff from a bona fide disciplic succession, you'll become very, very, very confused.
Right.
If you just go like, and you know how I know that? Because I was incredibly confused because I studied before I got into Bhakti. I would sit there at Weiser's bookstore on 24th Street or wherever that was,
Weiser's,
where they had
okay.
tons of books on yoga and crystals and healing and, you know, prophets and, you know, mediums. And I would just sit there and read all these books. And India's got tons of those books and you get lost in it. And some of the teachings will say, you know, you are infinite beauty. You are infinite, you know, some are actual Vedic books and some are from lost Vedic celebrities who they themselves are lost because they have no teachers themselves. And they start to claim to be avatars. I'm an incarnation of Jesus, Buddha, you know, Ram. And it's just like, and you're new to this. You're 19 years old and you're reading through these books, or you're 50 years old, whatever. You're reading through this for the first time, and all you know is Catholicism. You're like, that's interesting. This guy's everything. He seems to have a lot of followers. Maybe he is.
And what to speak of if you are coming from India, which is a tradition that is already saying that God manifests in so many different divine incarnations.
Sure.
And then you're and we could be sure that of those thousands and thousands of people, a large percentage of them were walking away with the message Sadhguru is God.
Sure.
Right. Sadhguru is who I should see as my object of my worship and so on. That's a problem. Right. That's a problem. So now, having said all that, if we go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is both a biography and important biography of Sri Chaitanya, as well as a book that lays out his teachings and the teachings of his followers, kind of like establishes like the teachings of what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is. You have a very interesting scene there, where the king of Puri is watching the devotees of Sri Chaitanya arrive from Bengal, and they're doing Kirtan, and he's never seen anything like this. And then you have his guru, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who is from the same town as Sri Chaitanya, and he has a brother-in-law there, and the brother-in-law is also from that same town. And the brother-in-law understands Sri Chaitanya is not an ordinary human being; he is Krishna himself, right? And he's saying this to Sarvabhauma in front of Sarvabhauma's students. And Sarvabhauma's students say, well, hold it. How can you say that? It's like the incarnations are predicted in the ancient texts. It's not like anybody can just come along and claim that they're an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. All that stuff is listed there. Only a naive person would accept someone as an incarnation without seeing it listed there in the ancient texts.
Right. So these are people who are in the know. When someone says, oh, well, this person's an avatar, we'll say, well, hold it. The BS detector is going off.
Right,
and these biographies of Lord Chaitanya, our lineage, it's a BS detector. Refine your BS detector. Come join us, and you'll be able to cut through all the nonsense very easily. You'll be able to go to these bookstores and be like, not bona fide. This book is not bona fide. Right. This teacher is not. This is real. This is genuine. There's some truth here. Hey, you might be a good person, but you're not an avatar of Buddha and Jesus wrapped into one, like Goober Grape. You know what I mean? You are. You're just a person. I know. I was famous, Kaustubha. I was famous there for a little bit famous. And I tell you, when you get a lot of people telling you how cool you are, you can start to think, you know what? Maybe I am cool. Maybe I am an avatar.
Right. Yeah, that's what I saw him playing with that. It basically was a way of getting thousands of people to worship you as God. That's some really dangerous and just, it's unethical stuff.
Recipe for disaster, truthfully.
Yeah. And so now what happened? So in that conversation where these students were rightly stepping forward and saying, well, hold it. How are you saying that this person is divine incarnation? We don't see that listed. He says, well, you haven't been looking in the right places. It's there in Srimad Bhagavatam. He said in the most important books, Bhagavatam and Mahabharata, it's there. It's also in Garuda Purana, Narasingha Purana, Padma Purana, Narada Purana, Bhavishya Purana, Vayu Purana, Matsya Purana, Skanda Purana. All of these ancient texts predict a golden sannyasi that would come and chant the names of Sri Krishna. And perhaps like the most important and most famous text, or verse that predicts this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, text 32. Krishna Varnam Tvasha Krishnam, Sango Pangastras Parshadam, Yagnai Sankirtana Prayer, Yajanti Hi Samedasaha. In the age of Kali, right, in the age that we live in, intelligent persons perform the chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. That's Sri Chaitanya, right? Although his complexion is not blackish, right? Krishna had a dark
Krishna's
blackish
blackish.
complexion. He is Krishna himself, because he came in a golden complexion. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. And all of that, you can go into all that detail. You're going to find similar things. He's there in the Vishnu Sahasranama, which comes out in the Mahabharata, which describes in detail. He has a golden complexion. He's exquisitely beautiful. His body is adorned with sandalwood. He takes sannyasa. He takes the round order life and is deeply sense-controlled and peaceful. He comes in the Kali Yuga. It's mentioned there. It's mentioned in the group, as I mentioned. It's mentioned in all these different places. So it's not like it's coming out of nowhere. It's something that scholars will look at very carefully. Can he actually be this person? Can he be this one that's predicted in these ancient texts? But I thought, let's go a little bit deeper into his reasons for appearance. You've started off by getting into, in one sense, what's most relevant to us is like how Sankirtan, how the chanting of the holy names, how Kirtan, how he establishes it as the Yuga Dharma, right? As the effective method for practicing spirituality in this age. So, and that's an incredibly important and significant part, and we should talk more about that. Let's just step back for a second and get into like the more esoteric aspect of who he is too, because that is so beautiful and important to understand too.
Kaustubha, I need to clarify something.
Sure.
For those who are joining us, or for those who are part of like our community here, we especially try to be very, very inclusive. And every day we do quotes from people from different spiritual traditions, people who are philosophers, people who are thoughtful. So Kaustubha is not just, recklessly shooting his gun out into a crowded street when he's saying this statement about Sadhguru, because we believe in finding truth wherever we can get it. And sure. But when he said this statement can very easily be understood as "I am God."
He's not so naive. He didn't know what he was saying.
Yeah, that's when the flags start to go up for Vaishnavas. Yeah. We're like, wait a second, you can't. That is actually. It's one thing to speak truth. It's another thing if that is your conclusion of your truth, that you are actually God and that you are in all of us, because then it becomes cheating. And then the BS detector has to sound very, very loud. Generally, we're incredibly tolerant. We like to find truth. We don't go out of our way to like find fault with people. But when people say statements like that, that's when we just sort of like, you know what, this is going against all philosophy. And we see you as misleading people, actually.
Yeah.
Right. And we see in these cults of personalities happen again and again. And it's usually it's a disastrous thing. It's what makes people lose faith in their gurus, lose faith or in the concept of a guru, lose faith in spiritual tradition, lose faith in a spiritual culture, and make people go to this conclusion that I guess I can't trust anyone. It leaves people broken and bitter and sad and lost. So I think Kaustubha, you're justified in saying that, calling that out, and I appreciate it. But it's not something that we do on a regular basis.
I prefer, and again, if his name wasn't used in the example in the way that it was, I probably wouldn't have even mentioned his name,
Well, it's also because, you get these other guys like Bhagawan Rajneesh, who's
Okay, now
also
more
another like
names.
rascal like that. And he's like, oh, his name's Bhagawan. We're
Sure.
saying like Bhagavan. I always say Bhagavan, just worship Bhagavan. Like, well,
Right. Oh,
he,
yeah,
he is Bhagavan. That's his name. I guess you got to worship him. No. So it's important to call this stuff out. And we don't like to name names like that, but sometimes you got, just for the protection of the tribe, of the herd, you got to say like, this is, because people, they're following leaders, and so they
Sure.
come along and they say like, yeah, okay, it seems like everyone else seems to be following him. So that's the important thing about hearing and showing up to class on a regular basis, is because you start to develop your discernment of what is nonsense and what is real.
Okay.
And otherwise it's all becomes a little confusing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, continue on with the esoterica, my friend.
So there in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can see it's saying Sri Chaitanya. This is Krishna himself. Okay, this is that boy who plays in Vrindavan, eternally engaged in adventures of love as his only purpose, right? And here's this very, and just to even understand that, is a lifetime of study and contemplation and meditation and prayer and so on. But it goes, what the way that our lineage understands all of the text of Vyasadeva, which the whole yoga tradition stems from, is that they build up to the point. They build up from the Vedas to the Upanishads to the Mahabharata, and then ultimately to the Bhagavad Purana, where Vyasadeva reveals the most confidential, beautiful, esoteric, complete meaning of what this yoga path ultimately leads to, and his message that it leads to divine love, that higher than any other principle is the principle of love, that every living being has an eternal connection of love with its source, which is Sri Krishna, that boy whose only interest is love. That's the understanding that's presented there. That's a very beautiful esoteric idea, and that you can go and study in great depth and discuss on all different kind of levels. It's something very special. But then Sri Chaitanya takes it one step forward, and this is how it's understood, is that Krishna is enjoying the love of his devotees in an intimate sense, right? He can be loved not just like with great awe and reverence, like you might worship even Lord Vishnu, or the way most people conceive of God, but that he can be loved as a dear friend. He can be loved, even as a child. He can be loved as a lover in a romantic sense. And Bhagavatam reveals all that in detail. But that Krishna, he's with Radha, right? His own divine energy, who's and his supreme lover. And he recognizes that it's it's to be loved by Radha for him is an indescribable bliss. But he sees that actually to hold love for God in one's own heart, what she's experiencing loving him is actually beyond what he experiences being loved by her, right? And we see that, like, in other words, when a mother holds her newborn child in her hands, the child feels the love of the mother, and it's very special, but the mother's love is completely, to have that love in your heart, it's just like, she's just completely melting, And so Krishna is saying the experience of love of God is more intense for the one who loves God than it is for God. And he's wondering, what is that mystery like? The mystery of Radha's love.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very incredible. Yeah.
Like Krishna's got everything except that.
That's the one thing he can't have, because he's Krishna. He is that root. What is it like to love that root of all existence? He says the only way that I can experience this is to take on another form as a lover of Krishna, following the guidance of Sri Radha.
The extreme lovers, the highest lovers.
The highest, and the gopis. And so he comes as Sri Chaitanya. His internal reason for coming as Sri Chaitanya is to understand the love that Radha has for Krishna, to experience that. And we see that play out through his pastimes, right? He goes to Puri, where he dances in front of the Rath Yatra cart, which is the cart of Sri Krishna. expressing the motions of Radha as he dances, and he, that's again an incredibly deep, beautiful, esoteric. I would say the deepest theology that I've ever come across. So there's that very esoteric side of who Sri Chaitanya is. That's a very special thing, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. And then there's his external reasons for appearing, and that gets to what you said, that he's saying that he manifests in the Kali Yuga, in the age of dented cans, in the age of quarrel,
broken eggs, flat tires,
all of that.
That's my new one too. Broken eggs, flat tires,
and recognizing that this isn't an age like the Satya Yuga. Right, like these ancient texts are saying, like in previous ages, the whole atmosphere was more peaceful, more sattvic, more pure. The people could sit; they lived long lifetimes. They had long memories. They could learn. They could take in information. They weren't plagued,
distracted,
with distractions and crazy desires.
We're distracted. Our culture, aren't we?
Oh God, it's like
just distracted.
Someone from such a yuga would look at TikTok and say, "What are you doing with your lives? Like, why are you?"
Such a yuga people looking at TikTok, that would be good.
There's no joy in this.
Just like walking down the street, especially in New York, like up here, if you walk down the street and look at your phone, it's not such a big deal. New York City, it's like you're gonna get hit by a car. Everyone's looking down. They're just walking into traffic. I did see a clip of a guy just walking right into a pond, just like by mistake, flipping into a fountain. It's so easy to ruin your life. People walk in front of trains. This is like a common thing because they're so distracted from what's right in front of their face. We're distracted when we're talking to somebody. We're having lunch with somebody. We're checking our phones. It's like, come on.
And so the Yuga Dharma for Satya Yuga was to sit silently in seclusion and go into deep levels of meditation. In this age, we're not qualified. We don't have the ability to do that. So he inaugurates the Sankirtan movement, that in the age of the dented cans, in the age of distraction, in the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, that simply through this chanting, that the names of Krishna, they're non-different from Krishna. It is a manifestation. Even that is the avatar for Kali Yuga, right? Is Krishna. He appears as his own name. He inaugurates that. And like you're saying, it's not that people weren't singing devotional songs before Sri Chaitanya. They certainly were, no question. There's beautiful poetry and bhajans that go back, ages and ages in India. But what Sri Chaitanya did was he took mantra, mantra was usually chanted like not with musical accompaniment, but with, with meter. He took mantra, particularly he took the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, taking it from the Upanishads, identifying that chanting this mantra as the Yuga Dharma, and then accompanying it with music and dance, and then establishing that as, okay, such a yuga, they were sitting and doing meditation. In this yuga, this is what we do. We're taking it to the streets. This is the primary spiritual practice. He established it that this is the primary spiritual practice in the age of Kali.
And we see its effect. We actually tangibly see its effect. Right now they're having a big Kirtan festival going on in Rishikesh. It's like people are going to Rishikesh. If you're familiar with India and traveling in India and the backpackers, people going in search of God to India. And they get lost in Rishikesh and they end up just smoking pot or smoking hash or like looking around. It's cool. There's the yoga ashrams. So many of the yoga ashrams just are trying to make money off the people. They're doing we're Yoga Alliance. Like they're trying to copy Americans' concept of yoga. And so you're going to India and you're like, what? And people are lost. And I know this because we go to Rishikesh every year and we do Kirtan and people come up to us and go, this is what we're looking for.
Right.
So now they're having this massive Kirtan festival and you could just tell people are getting satiated. You're not going to get it there doing your half hour of meditation and then your yoga asanas and then your neti pots and stuff like that. People who just want, okay, Americans are coming here. I'm going to make money off the Americans. You need to invest. You want to invest, and people do that and they brag. Well, I did 30 minutes of sitting today. I did an hour of sitting today. You're going to have to sit for about your whole life if you want the benefits you can get. Lord Chaitanya is like, listen, we're going to keep this super simple. You just chant this holy name. Just chant now. And what's going to happen is this mantra is going to be caught in your head. And you're going to be singing it all day long, all the time. It's very common that people say, I was chanting in my sleep last night. You ever hear people say that? I was singing in my sleep last night. It's just a common thing because there's something about the rag and the tal, the music and the beat that stays in the consciousness and constantly stays with you and purifies the consciousness. It is self-realization for dummies.
Yeah, for everyone. And and there's something else that we can highlight too, that but Sri Chaitanya, by taking this vast yoga literature, identifying for this age what becomes the most prominent feature of the practice, this Sankirtan, this chanting together, and then inaugurating that and setting that off, it also has widespread social implications. Because what he was saying was, like, if you go back to the Vedas, it was like the priests, who were seen as like kind of the leaders and those that were like most evolved, and it was kind of like very exclusive. There's a lot of caste division that really was very exclusive. And you also the Upanishads can also be interpreted that way too. These were texts that were studied by few people. And there was a lot of emphasis on caste division. What Sri Chaitanya did with Kirtan was he's saying, you know what, in this age, we are all a mess. Simply take this chanting, and it doesn't matter, man, woman, race, caste, creed, even species, right? Simply take up this chanting, and understand this as the most important principle, that we are all, by nature, we have Krishna prema in our heart, right? But by nature, every living being has love for God as at their very core. It's not something that we get from outside. Whether you're man, woman, black, white, brahmana, sudra, it doesn't matter. You have that. That is you. That's inside you. And simply by hearing and chanting these names, right, that it arises in us. And so he minimized, and he does this it's very clear for instance, in how he deals with Haridas Thakur, right? Born in a Muslim, even outside the caste system, he elevates him as the acharya of the holy name, the acharya of the dharma of this age, right? With Ramananda Roy, who's a Shudra, coming from a Shudra background, he sits and he listens to Ramananda Roy, questions him about the highest, most esoteric topics. He establishes the gopis, the girls of Vrindavan, as being the highest yogis of all. In so many ways, the simplicity and purity of this idea that let's accept that we are not great yogis, that we're not great meditators, that we're all desperate on the mercy, that in a very simple process, that and this needs to be mentioned, right? When we say that Sri Chaitanya is Krishna himself, the idea is he's the same person with a different complexion and in a different mood. And so Krishna's mood is sweetness, the mood of Sri Chaitanya is compassion and mercy, right? That like, regardless, we're not going to get all caught up in people's qualifications. We're bypassing all that, and we're just saying we're all fallen. Just accept this holy name, and you will feel the effect. You'll feel how it purifies your mind. You'll feel the powerful transformation of it, regardless. And that's coming by mercy. And then there's even one more special thing to it, is that not only is he the most merciful in the fact that he's giving it to everyone without qualification, but also he's giving the most esoteric, confidential, divine, which is he's giving the love of the residents of Vrindavan, the special type of love of God, the very intimate love, where it's not like it's not like God is way up on the platform and I'm way down. I'm this small. That you can love God with a deep intimacy, like you love a friend or you love a lover. That's what he was giving. It's considered to be very special.
The other thing about or the title that Lord Chaitanya gets is Savior of the Fallen. And I'm thinking, like, why are we so qualified? It doesn't get worse than us. It's not like we're like we were saying earlier, we're not unlike most of us here were not on some Vedic path. We were just sort of like stumbling around, and then the kindness of some devotee who extended their hand to us brought us in. That is all coming from like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so I did nothing in one sense to qualify myself to receive this, but somehow it entered into this very dark chamber of the hardcore scene, of the music scene. And there's something incredibly attractive about it that without even me choosing it, it sort of chose me. All I had to have was a little bit of inkling, some little bit of inkling, or a lot of you guys from the yoga scene. A lot of times we didn't do yoga because we wanted to become spiritual masters, or we wanted to become spiritually evolved. We just thought, this is a good thing for me. It's good for my health. I'm a little tight, or I'm a little flexible. Maybe I should do this instead of CrossFit. But somehow it extended within that scene as well, or whatever scene you're in, it extended out, caught you, and it was like an energetic force bringing you in. It's not like we have we've been studying at this spiritual university for about 10 years now, and I'm hoping to get this, and we develop a type of qualification. So this whole idea, we call ourselves dented cans, cracked eggs, flat tires. This is what we're dealing with in Kali Yuga.
Cracked eggs.
Cracked eggs. We're bunch of cracked eggs. You get in the old days when you used to buy eggs, it's like, oh, this one's got a crack in it, put it back. I don't switch it out. So we're like, or you got a flat tire. This is sort of how we are in Kali Yuga. We're not really qualified for anything spiritually. And even if we have some inkling, oftentimes it's just ego motivated. But Lord Chaitanya, he set this example again and again. He and his followers find the people that are the most fallen and go after them. And, the story I like that I really relate to is Jagai and Madai, because they were like from good families, but just they're such a mess. They're cruel. They're merciless. They're criminals. And Lord Nityananda and Haridas went and found them specifically and just begged them, please, chant, take it. And in the process, they whacked Lord Lord Nityananda with a clay pot, cutting his face open. And Lord Chaitanya, becoming furious, actually started to manifest his Vishnu potency, manifested the Sudarshan chakra. And it's by Nityananda saying, hey,
that's not why you came here.
You are not here to kill. You are here in Kali Yuga now to kill the internal demons. So he was making a statement of Lord Chaitanya's real appearance. Actually, this Jagai saved me. He saved me because Madai was going to whack me with another pot. He saved me. And then Lord Chaitanya actually incredibly embraced, oh, thank you so much. You've won me over. Your service and your love has won me over. And then he said, just for this, I'm going to give you pure love of God. And immediately Jagai was transformed. And then Madai immediately begged, please give me a love of God. And he said, well, you've got to apologize to Lord Chaitanya. He taught these basic things, how you don't offend. You don't offend the Vaishnavas. You don't offend these devotees. How you become tolerant. How if you do offend, you go and ask for forgiveness. These are sort of like simple things of life. This is where I developed the whole 6 pillars from, that we go into this world tolerant. It's not like I'm a great genius or deep thinker. It's like I just stole it from Lord Chaitanya and said it in a different way. You become incredibly tolerant. You ask for forgiveness. You give respect. You go out of your way to give respect. This is a huge teaching of Lord Chaitanya. You go out of your way to see good in people and give respect to people, appreciate people. And with that, you're always not looking, do you appreciate me, Kaustubha? Kaustubha, what do I do good? Tell me about my good qualities. No, it's like we give appreciation. We're not always begging for validation. We live in a world now, it's just the opposite. Everybody wants validation. Come on, I did all this for you. You better say thank you. I can't believe you don't appreciate me enough. Matter of fact, if our mood is to give appreciation and not look for appreciation, this mantra becomes incredibly powerful. That's what he said.
Right.
And the demons are not, the demons we got to kill in this world are more inside than outside. because you'll find that everybody can go either way, isn't it? And we know that because we've had some monsters inside of us. And then we met a person who transformed their life. And we were like, wow, I want that. That's how we change the world, is we kill our inner demons and we become an example. These are the powerful messages that we need to hear.
Very important. Thank you for sharing that, Raghunath. Yeah, that's essentially, that's what, Sri Chaitanya only left 8 written verses. And that was one of the verses that he wrote. And it's that verse, Trinadapi Sunichena Tadori Vasuhishnana Amanina Manadina Kirtaniya Sadahari. That's established. Yeah, that's our practice. That's the way. That's our path to perfection right there, right? Humility and tolerance, respecting every living being, right? And not saying, hey, see me in every living being. No, respecting every living, seeing God in every living being, seeing the spirit, right? The spiritual energy that every living being is made of, honoring that in every living being. And as you're saying, and letting go of every petty little need that we have for respect or validation or whatever, like being seen it's not about me.
Kaustubha, I feel unappreciated.
Kaustubha,
I just need to share this with you. I feel unappreciated.
Yeah. And in that, from that platform, right? From that platform, one can enter into one can receive the power of these names. One can, the power is there in them. They are pure spiritual energy, but we become receptive to it with the right attitudes, with the right sentiments. And so this is what Sri Chaitanya taught. It's very simple. Actually, it's a very simple thing. It grants the most deepest esoteric spiritual experience and realization, but the path itself is designed for us Kali Yuga residents. It's very simple. I will recommend anyone to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a 17-volume set, but it's one of the great joys of my life to read and discuss this book. But if you want something simpler, there's kind of like a nice kind of it's told in a story kind of way. There's a book out recently called Chaitanya Pravaha, the pastimes flow, the pristine flow of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's
by Gauranga Darshan, right?
By Gauranga Darshan. I'm looking online right now. I see Tulsi Books carries it, although it's being sold in rupees. I'm not sure if you can get that in other places in the world. I see it on Amazon, but I think it may only be the Kindle version, and I think it looks like it's for free, that you can read it for free. You download it for free, the Kindle version of it.
He hasn't figured out how to monetize that yet.
He doesn't. He's not even concerned. But there seems to be other places where it's available online. But that's Chaitanya Pravaha. That's Chaitanya, Caitanya, and then Pravaha, Pravaha. But that can be something you might want to check out.
A lot of great biographies. I mean, just when great people come, people were like, wow, I read a book about this person. And there was at least 5 biographies about Lord Chaitanya.
But nothing like Chaitanya Charitamrita. I mean, that's
Chaitanya Charitamrita deal. He lived only 48 years, and the books are written by, compiled by the diaries of Murari Gupta, who was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, and in the early years of his life, and the later years of his life by Swarup Damodar, who is also. Now you got to understand, there's people that were following him around. They were not ordinary people. They themselves were gurus in their own right, liberated souls in their own right, had lots of followers in their own right. But they could see, because if you Wikipedia, perhaps, I don't know, Lord Chaitanya, you'll see he's a figure. He's a historical figure, but he was so much more than a historical figure. He actually came like everything we said during this show today. But what the people who are very close to him could say, no. This isn't just a person who created, a renaissance in India or a trend or a reformation act within Hinduism. This person was none other than Krishna himself. And it was not said by some derelict. They were saying by like the highest caliber of teachers themselves, like, this is no ordinary person. I know you've heard he was a great scholar, because he was a great scholar. He was a child prodigy. I know you've heard that he was a mystic, because he did do mystical things. Like whenever I hear about these Christ, like when Christians talk about Christ, they're like, yeah, well, Christ did walk on water. The stuff Lord Chaitanya did was his next level mysticism stuff, but we're not even trying to sell him as a mystic. We're selling me as teaching a very refined, esoteric teaching in a crazy dark age. And he kept it really simple. All the mystic stuff that happened, that's there. It's all recorded.
And that was private.
Recorded by these not by fishermen. It's recorded by people who were like high elevated souls themselves. They wrote it down in diaries. And then all these things were compiled into these two major great works, the Chaitanya Bhagavat and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then there's also Chaitanya Mangala. There's, Jagadananda Pandit's Lochan Das biography. These are monumental works that were witnessed by people like, and not a very long time ago historically.
Not a very long time. Just from what you're touching on, it just makes me think, going back to the very esoteric side. But here you have Krishna himself, the soft-hearted, sweet, beautiful Sri Krishna, right? And he's being loved by Radha, the very vessel of divine love, and he's saying, my goodness, look at her. What she's experiencing is just, I can't even understand that, even though even my own omniscience can't reach there. I want to know what she has. And then he comes, and his and as you're saying, his external thing, it was this kirtan. It was reaching out to everyone, making it available to everyone, breaking down all the barriers, breaking open the storehouse of Krishna Prema. Externally. Internally, what is he doing? All night, he sits in a tiny little room, the Gambhira, in Puri, and he's with two people, Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy. These two most elevated poets, like it's refined, but not, that was their manifestation in this world. But who are they? It's Krishna wanting to know the mood of Radha, and who does he have? It's said that those two are avatars of Lalita and Vishaka, Radha's two closest associates, best friends. So in other words, think about this theology and what it's saying, that God himself wants to come and understand the love of Radha. And in order to understand it, he has Radha's two best girlfriends to stay up with them all night, every night, and read passages from Bhagavatam, recite beautiful poetry by the great bhakti poets, or sing beautiful devotional songs to stimulate the feelings of Radha within him. This is a very beautiful, it's just an incredibly beautiful theology, and just to be able to honor it and revere that divine love, and how God would see himself as a student to learn divine love. That very concept is something I find very, very captivating and special.
I feel there's great hope. Sometimes I feel a little hopeless, truthfully. But when I hear these stories of, like I was saying earlier, Jagai and Madai, they became great masters. They became great leaders and empowered devotees. And they were coming from such a dark, crazy place. When you hear stories about people's personal transformation, it inspires you. It's one thing, a person's great and they become a little greater. That's one thing. Person's born rich and they become a little richer. That's sort of cool. When a person comes from nothing, comes from doing the opposite, full speed southbound, and all of a sudden they get redirected and start to transform their life. That's what's inspiring to me. And so when you hear these stories of people and their transformation, that's what I want. That's what I need. And there is hope.
There is hope, Raghunath. He grants great hope. There's nothing but hope.
There's nothing but hope. All right. Well, that's our show. Okay. And there's no takeaways today.
Just take it all away.
Take it all away. Everything must go free. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. This podcast is made available every day to you. You can email Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and she'll send you the codes. You can join us on Zoom. It's fun. It's intimate. We look at each other. Or you can just get us wherever you get podcasts. Apple Podcasts. You can YouTube. You want to look at us, but you can't wake up early? That's okay. Go to YouTube. You can look at us. We'll wave to you occasionally like this. You can write a comment. You can hit the bell icon. You can subscribe to that channel. Write us a review on Apple Podcasts, please. 5-star, please. And I want everybody to maybe spend a little bit time meditating on Lord Chaitanya. That could mean maybe you chant a little bit more, or you read a little bit, or you do some Google searches and hear some pastimes, or YouTube searches to hear some pastimes. And if you like what we're doing, you want to support us, you can do that. This is community supported. If you're part of the community, you can support us by going to patreon.com/wisdomofthesages and make a monthly contribution for whatever you like. And then once you join Patreon, you get whole access into a whole chambers of treasure troves of recorded classes and workshops and Sweet Baby Krishnas and Kaustubha gives classes. Yeah, it's unlimited and stays forever. Thank you so much for being part of this community, the balloonity. You're beautiful. Happy Gurpurnima.
Happy Gurpurnima,
It's
everybody.
a Purnima. I love the fact that this is all the calendar has to do with the moon. Because of that moon, now we know it's a special holiday. Why? There's a big full moon. Today's a big full moon today. I want to redo my birthday. I don't want a solar birthday anymore. I want a lunar birthday. That way I can say, yep, there's the moon I was born under. It looked like that. That's my moon.
You've got one already.
Lunatic. I'm mad after the moon. Okay, I got to get these kids to school. It's a beautiful day for a beautiful day.